Welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids Podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids Podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I hope you stick around and keep coming back for more. Hey, be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, speaking of the kids only segment, I think it would be so fun to have a little contest in honor of April Fool's Day coming up very soon. And that's always a great day to tell a joke, right? So for the next couple weeks, we are going to have a kids only segment joke contest. For the next 4 weeks, parents can help their kids send in a video or audio recording of your best joke to the Collide Kids Podcast Instagram or Facebook. Just say your name and then your joke, and then you will be entered in the contest. Now, every entry will actually be featured on a future episode of the Collide Kids Podcast. And of course, the winner with the best joke is going to win a really cool prize. Be sure to follow the Collide Kids Podcast on Facebook and Instagram to learn more about this podcast and send me your jokes. Well, in case you missed it, last week we announced that I am very excited to join the River Radio Podcast Network. You can go to riverradio.com/podcast and check out the other shows they have in the network. And you can also listen to the River Radio by checking out their website, riverradio.com. Well, I am really excited about our guest today. His name is Matt Adams. Matt is a master illusionist and an evangelist who travels all over the world to share Jesus through storytelling, illusions, and more. He's been to over 40 countries, and I am so excited to have him with us today to share about what he loves to do. So here is my conversation with illusionist Matt Adams. We've had all kinds of noises. Matt, it is so good to have you on the Collide Kids Podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I got to meet you a few months ago, and I'm really excited for our listeners to learn about your job. Will you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm a magician and I am a follower of Jesus. So basically that means I think I have the coolest job in the whole world because I get to travel all over the world and I get to share Jesus with people and do big magic shows. So it is super fun.
That's awesome. And how does your family feel about what you do?
It's probably like any job, all the other kids think like, oh, it's amazing. It's this magician. And my kids are just like, oh, well, yeah, we see that every day. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm excited to talk to you. You're the second magician I've had on my show. And so I can't wait to see what you have in store for us today. But before we do that, because this is a show for kids, I always like to start out with a joke. So do you have a joke for us?
Sure. So this is a joke that I made up, and they're welcome to use this. So here it is. It's a knock-knock joke. So here it is. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Yell.
Yell who?
Who?
That's like the knock-knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Yeah, interrupting.
Moo.
Yeah, that's right.
I like those. That's fun. I'm sure the kids are going to enjoy that one. Okay. Well, good job writing a joke. That's not easy.
Yeah, it's tricky.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started in magic. What is it about being a magician that it makes you excited?
Sure. So I guess probably a lot of the kids listening, I got a magic kit when I was probably some of their ages, and my mom, I think, got it for me from Toys R Us. I don't think we have too many Toys R Us's around anymore.
No.
But I got one of these little magic kits, and so my personality, I want to be better than all my friends at everything. So I was obsessive over it, and so I got pretty good at like doing some simple card tricks and a couple little magic tricks that came in that kit. And then I once I was kind of better than my friends, that's all I really cared about. And then I didn't really do a whole lot of magic growing up. And I got back into it, funny enough, on my honeymoon. My wife and I went to Disney World for our honeymoon. And at the time, it's not there anymore, but they had a magic store at what they call downtown Disney. Now they call it Disney Springs.
Right.
So that magic store's gone. It's not even there. But I saw a magician out on the street, and he's levitating this little red ball. It's just like flying around right in front of my face, and I'm going, what is this? This is like next level magic. I don't know how he does this. I'm so amazed. So I go into the shop, and now I'm a grown up. I'm not just a kid, right? And so they actually pay attention to me because they think, hey, this guy has money, right? So like, all right, I'd always get ignored when I was a kid. So I'd go into the shop, and it was weird having the people like actually listen and like, oh, you want to buy something? Cool. So I bought the trick. I learned how it worked, and that kind of got me back into magic as an adult. And so I started using magic as a way to start conversations with people on the street, because right around the same time, I really felt like God was kind of pushing on my heart, saying, you need to be out in the community a little more proactively sharing your faith. I've created you as an evangelist. I want you to share your faith with other people. And so I can present as an extrovert at times. And so I thought, hey, I'll go out, I'll meet some strangers, no problem. And so the easiest way for me to do that was to start with a simple magic trick. And so it was something fun, something that I'd practice. And so I'd do a quick little magic trick for them and say, hey, check this out. And then they'd think, oh, that's amazing. But then I could instantly turn that conversation and be able to start talking about Jesus. And that was a very natural thing for me. So that's really why I kind of got back into magic. And, aside from the cool factor of being able to do some cool tricks, but to be able to really use that as a catalyst to sharing Jesus, that was important for me.
That's so neat. And I love that you shared about being an evangelist. Can you describe what that is? What is an evangelist?
That's right. So the word evangel is like a gospel, okay? And so what that is, it's good news. And so an evangelist is somebody who is sharing the good news, the gospel message, how that Jesus died for our sins and that he rose again and we can have eternal life. And so an evangelist, that's my whole job, is to be able to go around sharing Jesus with people. So that's what it is.
I love that. How did you know that's something that you wanted to do, to share the gospel with people?
That's a good question. So, the Lord tells us that all of us are commanded to go and share our faith with other people. So that's what's called the Great Commission. We want to go and make disciples of all nations, teaching them about Jesus, right? And baptizing them, instructing them. And so that's the Great Commission. So that's a command to all Christians. But for a few people, God has gifted them uniquely in that they are gifted as evangelists. And so basically all that means is you could have two people go out on the streets, both Christians, and one of them share Jesus and another one share Jesus, and they say the same thing. But for the first guy, maybe only one or two people will respond, and the second guy, maybe 100 people will respond. And they did the same way, they said the same thing, but the only difference is that for whatever reason, God has gifted the one guy, the evangelist, as a soul winner. He's gifted him, and he can say the same thing as somebody else, but that's just a spiritual gift that the Lord works through. And he's given every Christian a spiritual gift, and so it's a wonderful thing. Everybody has different kind of gifts, and some of us have the gift of evangelism, and so it's just something that the Lord does through me. He uses me to be able to share Jesus with people, and it just kind of clicks with them, and they go, "Hey, that sounds amazing. I need to trust Jesus. This is exactly what I've been missing in life."
We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app. Yeah, that's so good. And I love that you shared that about spiritual gifts, because I think a lot of times, I know for me growing up, I would always hear about how we should share the gospel and tell people.
Right.
And I always felt like I'm not really good at that. And so I felt like I couldn't serve God because I wasn't good at that one thing.
Yeah.
But then I learned that I was better at encouraging believers and teaching the Bible. And so I love that there's so many different ways that God uses people. But I do believe that we are all called by God to share the gospel with everyone. And
That's
so
right.
we all do it in unique ways. So I love that you get to share it with magic. How do you do that? How do you share with someone about Jesus while you're doing a magic trick?
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially when I was out on the streets, I went out to this place. It's called Bridge Street Town Center, and it was like a little outdoor mall that we have here in Huntsville, Alabama, where I live. And I would go out, I would do a quick magic trick, and then I could transition to the gospel. In fact, I will give you a quick demonstration of that if you like. Now, I know if you're just listening to this, you'll just have to kind of listen along and imagine. But if you go to the social media channels, maybe we can kind of demo this on social media, and you can see that. So here's what I got here. I have a blue bicycle deck of cards. So I'm showing a card box all around. It's just a deck of cards. All right. So I'm going to take the cards out of the box. And Kristen, what I want you to do is I want you to think of any of the cards that you see here. Have a look, and you got a card in mind?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now I am putting all the cards back in the box. Let's see. Okay, I'm now leaving the box top open, okay? So if you can imagine that, I'm not closing the box top. I'm just leaving the box top open. And here I'm going to ask you to do something that's a little bit goofy, okay? So let's pretend you're thinking of, well, hopefully not the Joker. That was on the face. You don't think about the Joker, but let's pretend it was the Joker. You're going to say, "Rise, Joker, rise!" And so you're kind of commanding your card to rise out of the deck. That is just, the top is open, but I don't have any strings or any wires or anything weird attached. It's just a deck of cards, okay? So you got your card in mind?
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna say rise, whatever your card is, rise. Let's see how you do.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if I can do the same voice that you did, but I'll
That's
try.
okay.
Here we go. All right. Rise, 10 of diamonds, rise.
That's pretty good. Let's see if it worked. Nope, it's not working. You got to be more enthusiastic. Come on, Kristen, you can do this.
All right, I'll try again. I got to stretch a little bit. Okay, here we go. Rise, 10 of diamonds, rise. Oh, there it is, 10 of diamonds.
Comes right out of the deck. So
it was
the card
shy the first time.
rises right up out of the deck. Very cool. We can push him back down in. And if you want to see that for yourself, I think we'll post it there, yeah?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. You guys check out my social media. I'll have it posted there. That's so fun. How do you share the gospel from that?
So I would take that and I would show somebody a quick trick like that, and they'd say, "This is amazing. Are you a magician?" Yeah, I'm a magician, but I'm not out on the streets just to show magic tricks. I like to be able to have conversations about Jesus with people, and I don't want to be, one of those weird guys on a street corner holding up a sign, "Turn or burn." That's kind of extreme, right? Kind of crazy. But I thought, hey, you know what? But Jesus is really important, and it's important to talk about him. So what about you? Have you ever trusted Jesus as your Savior? What's your story? Tell me about it. And then I could simply listen to their story. It was a nice icebreaker for me to use a magic trick, and then we could have a nice conversation and see where they were at.
That's great. And I think a really big part of sharing the gospel with someone is having a relationship with them. Even if it's someone you just met, letting them know that you care about them is why you're sharing the gospel with them.
That's right.
And so knowing about who they are and where they come from, I think that's a really important part of sharing the gospel.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lie that goes around that you have to have this deep relationship with somebody before you can share Jesus. And that's simply not true. Like you just said, you can meet somebody right away and start a relationship with that person and share Jesus in that same time, that first meeting. Now, not everybody, well, I'm not even super comfortable doing that, to be honest. I was going to say not everybody's comfortable. I don't know anybody who's comfortable doing that. It's a hard thing, but that's why magic helped me do that, because it was a way that it made me feel a little more comfortable. I was still uncomfortable, understand, but I knew it was important, and I cared about them. I care about their soul. I care about where they're going to spend eternity, and so I had to think of what's a good way to do an icebreaker. And I'll say this, and I say this often to when I'm preaching and different things. Nobody is accidentally a good soul winner. Even if you have a spiritual gift of soul winning, right? Of evangelism. Like, I'm not accidentally good at what I do. And so if you think of anything that you like to do, whether it's playing video games or roller skating or, skateboarding or whatever, baseball, whatever you like to do, you don't just wake up one day, if you like playing baseball and realize, wow, I'm as good as Aaron Judge and I can break the American League home run record. I'm amazing. I should get signed to the Yankees. Like, it didn't just happen like that, right? Like he invested a crazy amount of hours bulking up, getting really big and strong and eating right and working out and playing ball and all those things to get to where he's at. And the same for me with magic, but it's also the same for spiritual disciplines. So I made a lot of mistakes when I was learning how to share Jesus. And I still mess up sometimes, but that's okay. God has factored in our mistakes and, it's not a big problem. The problem would be if we never improve, right? And so he's not, measuring us based on our mistakes here. There's a sentence that I heard at a convention a long time ago, and I really like it. And so the man had said, God's not measuring us based on how many fish we catch. He's measuring us based on how many times we just throw out the net. And I really like that. The increase is up to the Lord. Whether somebody really trusts Jesus or not, that's up to him, right? That's up to God, and that's up to that person. I can't cause somebody to do that. I just can throw out the net and say, hey, you should turn to Jesus. It's amazing. You should do that. It's a great thing. And see what they do, And
yeah.
So, yeah.
That reminds me of a Bible story where Jesus was meeting with Peter and Andrew. He met them for the first time.
Yeah.
And he was calling them to be his disciples. But before he did that, he asked them to go out on the boat. And they were both really good at fishing, like actual fish, not just fishers are in, but fish, And they had come in and they had caught nothing the night before. And Jesus said, I want to get in the boat with you. And so he did. And he said, put down your net. And what struck me about this story when I just read it, because I've read that story many times, was that Jesus told them to do the exact same thing they had already done.
Right.
And got nothing from it. But the only difference was Jesus was in the boat this time. And so when Jesus meets us there, when he calls us to do something and he's there with us, we're going to see fruit from that. We're going to see God bless us because of that, because we're willing to do it when he's in the boat. So I think, like you said, we just got to keep trying. We got to keep practicing. The more that we do it, the more experience we get. I think it helps us to have the courage to do that. And I love that you use magic to get to know people that way.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I love what you said. It's just like any other thing where you practice. You just keep trying it. You keep doing it.
Yep.
And if God tells you to share with someone and they don't listen to you or they don't respond, chances are they needed to hear it a few more times.
That's
and
right.
so you might have planted a seed in their heart that someday they will remember.
That's exactly right. And it's not always just about just that person. It's part of our evolution as well as Christians, as we are becoming more like Jesus. This is part of our growth process, So when we share, we learn things. And I remember even as a kid, I had Mormon friends, I had Muslim friends, I had all these different kind of people who were different faiths and different backgrounds. And as I would share, they would ask questions and I would not always know the answer. And I'd have to think through things and I'd go back, I'd talk to my parents, they said this, what do I do with that? It was part of my growth process, even as just a young kid, learning how do I share Jesus effectively? And what if I don't know the right answers? And a lot of times I didn't know the right answers, and that's okay. It was part of how I grew. But it also made them think. It made my friends think very often, going, we don't have the answers either. And it was a good growth process for everybody.
That's so good. And what a great place to start sharing the gospel then with your friends, people that already care about you and know that you care about them, to just tell them and they're still going to hopefully love you afterwards.
That's right. I will say I never lost a friend over sharing my faith with them. Never. And I think that speaks to the fact that obviously I did that with compassion, but it also kind of speaks probably to the lie where people think like no one's going to like me anymore, and that just wasn't the case. Now they knew where I stood, but we also had fun hanging out. So, not all of my friends trusted Jesus, and that was okay. And I still hung out with him, and that was okay. We weren't doing bad things, but we could hang out. We could play baseball. We could ride bikes, whatever. And we had a good time. And yeah, they knew where I stood, and it wasn't one of those things where I was just preaching at them every time we were hanging out, because that could get annoying, I'm sure. But occasionally we would talk about it, because Jesus was a big part of my life. And if they wanted to talk about something that was a big part of their life, I would listen to that too. That's just called being a good friend, having a good relationship.
Yeah, so true. So let's talk a little bit about your job now. So you travel everywhere. Everywhere, and tell people about Jesus. So tell us about some of the craziest places you've been to before.
Oof, some of the craziest places. Okay. So maybe one of the craziest ones was just a few months ago. I was over in Ukraine. And so I won't tell you exactly where I was in Ukraine, just for their safety and in case we want to do some future trips there. But we were in the thick of things. Ukraine is in the middle of this war with Russia right now. And so Russia has invaded Ukraine. And so there's some very dangerous things going on over there. But we wanted to go. My church set up a very, very small team. And so the four of us went, and we met some contacts that we had over in this particular area of Ukraine, and they have church there. Most people have fled the town, but there is a church that is still meeting, and so we went over to help just be with the church. And so the reason this trip was so crazy, obviously, is, they're in the middle of a war, and so, missiles are flying overhead, and tanks are rolling by, and people are, shooting, and it's some crazy stuff. But there are people still there that are hurting, they're broken. And so I think every single house that we went to visit, every person just would break down and just weep, saying, we can't believe that you would come here and be with us in this time of trouble. And it was our message for them that, hey, we see you, we're standing with you, we love you. Jesus has not forgotten you or forsaken you. And so we were able to deliver some food things to some of the needy people and just make some of those house visits. And so there were some very sad stories, very, very difficult things. But that ministry of presence, sometimes it's just being with somebody and being able to listen to their stories. And that's so powerful.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. And I love the people of Ukraine. I visited there in 2019. And so
nice.
I still have lots of friends in Ukraine, and keep up with them often and pray for them often. So that's so good that you were able to go there.
Yeah.
And I love that you said being present with people is such a gift. Sometimes we think I have to do something really, really huge or have to have a lot of money to give them, but sometimes just being with them makes a big difference. So that's so good. Tell us about a few other places you've traveled before that are really unique.
Okay. So I think, every place is unique in some way. They're different. Every one of the places that you go are different. But there's a lot of similarities in a lot of the places that you can travel to. And so I think it's just amazing to be able to go and experience another culture. It's a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's a little bit scary, but it can be super fun just to be able to see, like, oh, you know what? People still go to grocery stores over here. They might not speak my language, but they might not drive on the same side of the road, but they still do some of the same things, right? They'll have churches, they'll have sporting activities, they have these kind of things. And so you can find a lot of commonality in some of these other cultures, but there are a lot of differences.
Well, that's amazing that you've had so many different opportunities. I see on your form that you've been to the Taj Mahal and the pyramids.
Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of amazing travel experiences. So that's really cool that you've been able to do that. Have you done magic in these places? Like it says Times Square and Machu Picchu.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I did Machu Picchu was just a little over a year ago. I hiked the Inca Trail. It was 27 miles, and we took 3 or 4 days to hike over that thing. It was very challenging, but a lot of fun. And then once I finally got to Machu Picchu, I recorded some magic on my iPhone when I was up there. But it was the most beautiful place probably that I've ever seen. Was the hike along the way to Machu Picchu was just beautiful. And the locals there had called it the Sacred Valley, and it was, boy, you can see why they used to worship this valley, because it was so beautiful. And of course we don't worship the valley, we worship the one who made the valley. But boy, right. It really was beautiful.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you have this ministry that you can take anywhere and get to know people just by doing magic. So I think that's so cool that you have that opportunity to share the gospel that way. Well, this has been so great, Matt. Thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story. Before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. Sure. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
Okay, yes. How about this? So when I was a kid, I was kind of like the ringleader of our little group. And so I think the reason I was able to keep that status was because I came up with really creative and fun games that everybody in the neighborhood would play. And so we always had a great time. And so one of the games, we had this little sandbox, and it had a swing set and slide and monkey bars and all that kind of thing. And it was a wooden border that went around the whole playground area. And inside it was all sand. And so we would play the typical game called tag, right? But we got kind of irritated that you could be on top, and we were a little dangerous back then. I grew up, a while ago before helmets and all this stuff. So we would climb on top of the monkey bars and run back and forth on top of them. I don't recommend doing that. It's very dangerous, but we would do that. And so our friends down below would try to tag us, and sometimes they would just tag our feet. They would tag our shoes. And so we made a rule that shoes don't count. And so you could tag anything else, and that's how we played tag. Well, after a while, that got boring, and so we came up with a new game called reverse tag, where before you had to stay within the confines of that sandbox. You couldn't get out, or you'd be out. You had to stay within the confines of the sandbox, and shoes don't count. Well, reverse tag made it where you could not go into the sand and touch the sand, and shoes were the only thing you could tag. And so we were running around it was all on this little island in the middle of this apartment complex. And so there, outside of the island, it was where the road was. And so we had, just like a little wooded area, and in the inside was the sandbox. And so what we would do is we'd jump from the woods onto one of the playground structures, trying never to touch the sand because otherwise we'd get out. And so you'd see kids running around. And the other really weird rule was, instead of one person being it trying to tag everybody else, we reversed everything. Now everybody was it trying to tag one person. So you had kids diving all over the place trying to grab their shoes. It was hilarious. So we had a lot of fun with that. So
that's amazing. I think everyone should go try out the reverse tag today.
It was pretty great.
That's a good one. Don't run on the monkey bars at the top. That'll make your parents very nervous.
Very dangerous.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for being on the show today. And I hope that a lot of our listeners will check out your stuff. Where can they find more information about you and your ministry?
Sure. So you guys can find me a little bit on YouTube. I've got just a few things out there under Matt Adams Ministries. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, all the social media platforms, TikTok, all the things. And that's also my website, mattadamsministries.com. So they can find me online at that.
Very good. Well, thanks again for doing this today. This was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Christen.
I just love that Matt discovered the way for him to share the gospel was through magic tricks because it helped him start a conversation with someone. It can be so simple to take the thing that you love to do and find a way to share your faith through that. And learning to share the gospel is not something that comes easily for everyone. You have to practice and keep trying. Like Matt said, God is not always measuring us based on how many fish we catch, but what really matters is how many times we throw out the net. No, I just love that he did a magic trick on the show. And so if you'd like to see that trick, I'm going to post that on my Facebook and Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. So be sure to check that out. I hope you get to see it. It was pretty cool. And if you'd like to see more magic tricks, you can follow Matt on Instagram, Facebook, Matt Adams Ministries. You can also check out his YouTube channel or go to his website, mattadamsministries.com. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here is Charis.
Hi, my name is Charis, and this is my joke. What's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus.
Ooh, I love a good geography joke. Thanks, Charis. Well, hey, I'd love to hear your favorite joke or maybe an encouraging quote that you like or your favorite Bible verse that you want to share. Just go to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, or you can find information about how to send that to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. And if you submit a joke, you could be entered into the Kids Only Joke Contest. So be sure to send me those jokes. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do that by sharing this episode with friends and family or leaving a rating and a review. When you do that, it really does help more people find out about the show so they can listen too. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have a great week. I'm so glad that you listened today. Thank you for being here. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.